Welcome to Sports Beat KC, a sports podcast presented by the Kansas City Star. I'm Blair Kerkhoff. Sporting KC beat writer Sam McDowell joins us today to talk about the latest result, a draw with the Vancouver Whitecaps on Saturday night. We'll discuss the prospects of getting into the victory column, and we'll veer off and talk about some of the best high school athletes in Kansas City sports history. Sam, how you doing?
I'm doing well. Thanks for having me on, Blair.
Yeah, look, 1-1 Saturday night with Vancouver. I don't know. It felt like a loss to me, but it was a draw. It doesn't go in the standings as a loss. It goes in as a draw. But let's hear what Peter Vermees had to say about Saturday night's game.
I feel good. I feel actually really good. I think our team played excellent tonight. I don't know what else we could do. We went down a man. We managed it incredibly well. We worked hard. We gave nothing away. We cleared everything. The goal at the end is just it's a lucky break for them because they didn't deserve to get a point leaving here. But at the end, I love the progression that we've made from the last 3 or 4 games. Every game we get better. So I'm very, very proud of the guys and their work tonight.
What do you think Besler's return?
Excellent. He was top man in the game. He was fantastic in all aspects. His reading of the game, his closing in on guys, his covering the channel, aerial duels, passing, just commanding. He was top man today.
So Peter Vermees more encouraging than I was about the outcome. Is he wrong? Is he just doing what a good coach manager has to do in this spot, or is there really something positive to take from this?
I think probably a combination of both. When you look at the past maybe month or so, I think a theme is sort of emerging with this team, which is missed opportunity. And that's what I felt like Sunday was, or Saturday night was, because they played so well for the first 50 minutes of the match. Christian Nemeth gets ejected. Then all of a sudden the match changes. And now you're just fighting to hold on. And they didn't do it. And it was because it was the 94th minute. To me, it felt like that gut punch is what I described it as. And I do think you're seeing a more positive Peter Vermees over the past couple of weeks. And my take on that is because maybe he's feeling that his team's not quite as confident as it has been in years past, so he's got to be the leader in that sense. And I think that's why you heard what we just heard from Peter Vermees.
So I heard I heard this after I heard his on-field interview right after the game, and it was pretty much the same thing. He spun it. He had to be so bitterly disappointed because the drawing goal had just happened, right? 94th minute, and that microphone was in his face minutes later. He had to be
best time to get him.
Right? But he had to be dying on the inside. But I'll give him credit. You got to craft a message, and he didn't have much time to craft a message. And I've seen this from other coaches, managers before, where there was a moment of just utter disappointment the way this game ended, but you don't want to bring it into the locker room. And look, maybe at practice this week, the training, there'll be a different message. But do you see value in him spinning it the way that he did?
Yeah, for sure. And I think you actually just brought up another really good point about the fact that something like that happens and it's so fresh. Peter Vermees actually has something that he does that's probably unique to a lot of other teams that we cover, which is he doesn't talk to the team in the locker room after the game because he wants to have time to really think about what just happened. He wants to go back and look at film before, for example, he criticizes a player. He wants to go back and see it and really analyze it and then have that conversation with the players at training. And this week they skipped Monday training. It's on Tuesday, so that's when you'll maybe see his true colors, and that'll stay inside the locker room. But I certainly think that there's a point to the attitude and approach he's taken to the message he's getting out in the media, because players say they don't read stuff. They read what Peter Vermees is saying.
All right, let's dive into a couple specifics about the game. Was it a deserved red card?
Yeah, absolutely. It's unfortunate because it's an accidental play from Christian Nemeth. I don't really think he sees the guy. I think he's just sliding to jar the ball loose there, and his studs get Felipe on the ankle. Absolute red card. Peter Vermees had no issue with it. Christian Nemeth had a little bit of an issue with it, but you kind of saw his reaction on the field. I mean, he begs the referee not to give him the card before he even sees it, right, so he knows it's a possibility.
All right, so Nemeth taketh away, but he also giveth. It was a It was a nice goal. A nice little hesitation move on the goal, which had been a long time coming. I don't know what the scoreless streak.
It was 223 minutes, I think.
Oh, good Lord. That's
the strength of the team early on in the season.
Yes, this was the team that that was angry that they gave up the goal to Montreal to make it 7-1.
Yeah,
to win it 7-1. It was a nice goal. Set up that goal. How did that one come about?
Yeah, I think two key plays in that. One is that Benny Feilhaber springs Johnny Russell loose, who makes a great run down the right-hand side. And Benny Feilhaber playing in his first home game since they traded for him. I know you were out at the press conference last week talking to him. I kind of wondered what maybe his role would be here, and I think you saw just some calmness to the midfield, and that was a specific play where I think a lot of guys would try and make something happen immediately. He sort of waited a split second, then picked out that pass and waited on Russell to make the run. And then you mentioned that the fact that Christian takes a touch there before he taps it in. Most instincts there, you see a goal, you see the goalie out of position, you're just going to try and kick it immediately, but just the calm touch is what sets it up. We've seen him do that now 3 times this year to score a goal.
It was a beautiful goal. I really did. I thought that hesitation, and then the keeper just flies by, creates the open net, and it was just basically it could have been a tap in.
Right.
It was that open. So that gives Sporting a lead for the first time since, I think, 2013 or something. I mean, it just seemed like it's been forever since they've had the lead. And so they take that into halftime. Had a couple of opportunities that could have been 2 or 3-0 at halftime. But they take the 1-0 lead into halftime, and then the red card happens in the 51st minute. So they're down a man. And you said earlier they're hanging on for dear life, but they did that for more than 30 minutes.
Yeah.
And part of that is because, speaking of calm being restored, Matt Besler's back.
Yeah, I thought that was the key to the match. That's the reason Sporting Kansas City looked different on Saturday than what we've seen for the past month or so, is because Matt Besler, Benny Feilhaber said he's like a midfielder back there. He's so good with the ball at his feet. And specifically, the way he sets his teammates up to receive the ball in the exact right position is different than other guys that can play that position, other guys that have played that position when he's been out. Their defense has been struggling. Part of it's, I think, because of the midfield rotation, but certainly the back line hasn't been good. And when Besler's back there, they're just a completely different team. And Vancouver had no chances in the first 50 minutes before they went up a man.
And look, Besler is such a pro, I mean, a national team member, played in the World Cup. I mean, Besler is. I think he'll go down as one of the all-time greats here. And
I think he kind of gets overlooked in that sense. And I've just sort of had a theory on it for a little while that maybe when he's a hometown kid and you knew him growing up, maybe you think, oh well, it's not as difficult to get to the pros as maybe I thought it was, because I know somebody who's doing it. But I just think we sort of overlook. I mean, he played in a World Cup, and just the consistency he's had for 7-8 years now, I think, is what really is going to define his career when he retired. And it's funny when you really recognize how good he is when he's not playing.
Right.
Because the past month we've seen how good he is because he's been out of the lineup, and they can't survive with him out.
How many straight games had they given up at least 2 goals at home?
4 straight games at home.
Yeah. I mean, that's and so 1 to Vancouver. He's on my, I don't know how short my list is, how deep it would go, but professional athletes who had success in their sport who went to Kansas City area high schools.
Okay.
He went to Blue Valley West, so I'm calling him the best soccer player
for sure
that Kansas City high schools have produced. And the reason I thought about this was a couple of weeks ago when Albert Pujols was in Kansas City, and he hit a home run. And he just went by 2,000 career RBIs, one of 3 or 4 now to do that. He's got to be the best baseball player.
Yeah, I actually saw him play in high school. Yeah,
for Fort Osage.
Yeah, I saw him play in a wood bat tournament one time, and he hit 2 home runs in a wood bat tournament. One of them a grand slam, and it's kind of a funny story that the pitching coach came out when he's due up with the bases loaded. Then I think the other team's up by 1, and it's the American Legion wood bat tournament, and you can tell that the coach is telling him, I know the bases are loaded. Don't give this guy anything to hit. Gets a 2-0 pitch. First 2 pitches are in the dirt. Third pitch is about 2 inches off the ground, and he golfs it over the center field fence. And we're standing next to scouts. And, of course, I'm like 12 years old maybe. I don't really understand what the scouts exactly mean. But, my dad's telling me later, all the scouts are talking about, wow, let's take this guy in the first round or something like that. So, I mean, You could tell, obviously. I don't think Besler maybe had that wow factor on a soccer field playing in front of probably 200 parents.
No,
but
but
special.
but it clearly established after Notre Dame and winning honors there, and so we've got soccer and baseball covered. I think football may become with Drew Lock now going into the NFL.
That's a good one, yeah.
Darren Sproles to me would be pretty close to if not at the top, the Olathe North guy, and then we can argue basketball till the cows come home. There's a bunch of nice basketball players who went to Kansas City high schools, but I don't think one that just stands out among all the others.
I think probably one what could have been with Jerron Rush. I think he was probably the guy that should have put us on the map in Kansas City.
Yeah, I think I may be wrong about this, and I'm sure I am, but the career leader in scoring who went to a Kansas City high school may be Anthony Peeler.
Really?
But I'm not 100% on that.
See, if I was asking that question, I would just go to your desk and ask you that question. So if you don't know it, nobody on our staff does.
I will look it up and come back next week with the response to that. Okay, so the defense is obviously better. They're heading toward a shutout with Besler back there, but the game tying goal, somebody didn't mark their man. What happened on that game tying goal? I just cringed when I saw that.
Yeah, I asked Peter Vermees about that because it's difficult to sort of dissect without knowing the specific assignments of every player on that. And again, it's what we talked about at the top of this podcast. He sort of just brushed it under the rug and just said, we played a really good match and we did this and this and this well. And so I'm not exactly sure whose assignment that was. I also thought they could have closed out the cross a little bit better than they did. And that's actually been an ongoing theme regardless of who's in the lineup. I don't think they close out crossing passes as well as they perhaps could. And I think that's cost them a few of these goals. Or, it's the same as, in basketball. When a guy's trying to get the ball to the post, you want to make that pass hard, not just defend the guy who once he's got the ball. So that's been an issue for them ongoing, I think, a couple years now, a little bit.
That's why I felt the way I did after the game. That's why I thought it was a real shoulder slumping type of game. If it had been a gorgeous goal or a hard-earned goal, you tip your hat and just say, but it's congratulations. But for him to be as open as he was, where he was, and it was Cornelius, right? His first professional goal.
Mm-hmm. And you could see it in the locker room. I mean, the players, they have a kind of a routine after a win and a routine after a loss. And this felt more like the routine after the loss. The first person I talked to was Kellen Rowe, and he said, you could see it on everybody's faces as soon as I walked in here that the way we took the result of this match. So you mentioned that it felt like a loss. I think to the players it did as well.
Well, and that kind of circles back to what Peter Vermees has to, what he has to do, what his job is, because I'm sure he felt that as well.
Yeah.
And his shoulders had to have slumped just then, when that goal is. So now you've got to, you got to spin it a little differently.
I think maybe if you had won the past 3 matches, they probably would be spinning a little bit differently. I just think that they felt like this is the match where the winless streak ends. Professional sports are kind of quirky in that way to where sometimes it just takes one win to flip the switch. And I think they felt like this was that match until that goal came.
Yeah. So Seattle Sounders on Sunday at Sporting. It's the second of, I think, 3 straight at home for Sporting. Kind of a time to get out of this thing. It's 7 straight winless.
In MLS.
9
straight overall,
yeah. I was just thinking Seattle may not be the team, but I think I don't know if they're at the top, but
they're second. So I mean, this is kind of a tough time for Sporting because they play a couple of home matches. They've got the Galaxy and Seattle, 2 really good teams. Then they don't play at home in June at all. So they've got 4 straight road matches in June. Then when they do come back home after that, they play LAFC, who is on a record-setting pace points-wise in MLS. So you've got 7 straight matches that are going to be really difficult tasks, which is, I think, why what happened Saturday it sort of resonates even more.
What are the prospects? What if you were to? You don't have to do it for a while, but if you were to project a score, what would you go with?
I think maybe a 1-1 match sort of probably feels about right. I think if Sporting Kansas City can get 3, they're going to feel absolutely great going into this. Like I said, this 6 or 7 match stretch moving forward. But you've got to get 3 out of 1 of the next 2, regardless of how difficult the opponent was. You can't go a three-match homestand and not get, a victory out of it.
Right. All right, Sam McDowell, thanks for stopping by. I will come back next week with some better high school basketball information. But great stuff, Sam. Thanks a lot.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Blair.
Links to the stories we discussed can be found in the show notes and on kansascity.com. A big thanks to Kathy Liu and to Leah Becerra for producing today's episode. You've been listening to Sports Beat KC, a sports podcast presented by the Kansas City Star. I'm Blair Kerkhoff, and we'll talk sports again soon.